Blast Power, Weapons Master, Intellect. These are a few of the 128 powers indexed in the ComicVine Wiki database. We surveyed the over 22,000 character dataset to reveal surprising patterns in these powers that any comic book aficionado or character designer might be interested to know. To kick things off, our first chart shows each of the 128 powers represented by a dot, and when a character with that power was first introduced. We see that 90% of the powers can be found in characters established between 1935 and 1940. And by the large swath of blue, we know that DC introduces the majority of the powers before Marvel. This next chart explains why this might be. Here we see when each publisher introduces one of the 128 powers. DC had a leg up in starting earlier and more gradually than Marvel. Here I can also hover over a power and see that, for example, Hypnosis was first introduced by the character Dr. Occult of DC in 1935, and highlighted below, Thakor from Marvel in 1939. This view highlights the introduction time gap between Marvel and DC a little better. An insight we see immediately is how these rivals would compete over time, as we see the gap between the introduction dates close as time progresses. Now we'll focus on how to build a balanced character. It turns out the characters who collectively have the most appearances in issues tend to have between 10 to 20 powers, as indicated by the highlighted band. In this Beast Swarm, each character is denoted with a bubble plotted according to how many powers that they have. It's clear that the most prominent characters are human and mutants, indicated by the bubble size, and gravitate in that sweet spot of 10 to 20 powers, whereas characters with the most powers tend to be godlike and have less appearances. Let's say you wanted to create a human character with about 10 powers. To see if there's a correlation between any two powers, we used an interactive heat map view. The visualization shows that powers within categories tend to be more correlated than across categories. Also, there are unique power combinations which are highly correlated, indicated by a dark red color. For example, Penance Stare and Flame Breath as a combination of powers are highly likely, so something to consider if you're creating your own character with Penance Stare. But what if you'd like to see combinations simultaneously across multiple powers or categories? To answer this, we used hierarchical edge bundling, which shows adjacency relations. The edge color encodes the number of instances of the corresponding power combination normalized across characters. And what did we learn? Well, these darker, denser bundles here show the most prominent combinations between categories. To compare DC versus Marvel, we used the same technique and encodings to create a mirror network. Difference in density of links, as indicated by the arrows here, show that Marvel utilizes a more diverse combination of powers than DC Comics. As we hover on a power, the corresponding links get highlighted in red. As we can see here, Stealth has been combined with more powers in Marvel characters. This helps to see differences in combinations for individual powers.